We all know the story of the Titanic, or at least we think we do. A magnificent ship, an iceberg, a tragic sinking. But the real story is so much more than that. It's a tale of ambition, class divides, incredible heroism, and devastating mistakes. So grab a seat, and let's dive deep into the complete, untold story of the RMS Titanic. Our story begins not on the icy waters of the Atlantic, but in the bustling shipyards of Belfast, Ireland. In the early 1900s, the competition for transatlantic passenger travel was fierce. The White Star Line, wanting to outdo its rival, Cunard, didn't just aim to build the fastest ships, but the most luxurious. They envisioned a trio of ocean liners so grand they would be a destination in themselves. These were the Olympic-class liners, the Olympic, the Britannic, and the star of our story, the Titanic. Construction on the Titanic began in 1909 at the Harland and Wolff shipyard. It was a monumental undertaking, employing over 15,000 workers. The sheer scale was breathtaking. The ship was nearly 900 feet long, the length of 4 city blocks, and as tall as an 11-story building. Its rudder alone was heavier than an entire 15th century sailing ship. It was designed to be the pinnacle of modern engineering. The hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments. The builders boasted that even if 4 of these compartments flooded, the ship would remain afloat. This led to the infamous and ultimately fatal claim that the Titanic was practically unsinkable. Inside, the Titanic was a floating palace. For the first-class passengers, no expense was spared. There were opulent suites, a grand staircase crowned with a glass dome, a Parisian-style café, a swimming pool, a gymnasium, and squash courts. They dined in a magnificent hall that spanned the full width of the ship, enjoying multi-course meals prepared by world-class chefs. Life in first class was a world of elegance and privilege. But the Titanic was a ship of stark contrasts. As you descended the decks, the luxury faded. Second class was comfortable, equivalent to first class on many other liners, with its own library and dining room. But down in third class or steerage, it was a different world. The cabins were simple, with bunk beds for 4 to 10 people. While it was a significant step up from the crowded dormitories on other ships, it was a world away from the luxury above. For many of the 700-plus third-class passengers, this journey wasn't a vacation. It was a one-way ticket to a new life in America, a dream of a better future packed into a single suitcase. On April 10, 1912, the day finally arrived. From Southampton, England, the brand-new RMS Titanic set off on its maiden voyage, a symbol of human achievement gleaming in the spring sun. Crowds gathered to wave goodbye, completely unaware they were witnessing the start of a legend. The ship made brief stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, now Cove, Ireland, to pick up more passengers. Among them were some of the wealthiest people in the world, like John Jacob Astor IV and Benjamin Guggenheim, alongside hundreds of immigrants from across Europe, all sharing the same vessel, all heading towards the same fate. For the first few days, the voyage was smooth and uneventful. Passengers settled into their routines. The weather was beautiful, the sea calm. The powerful engines propelled the ship forward at a steady 21 knots. Life aboard was a grand spectacle. But as the Titanic steamed further into the North Atlantic, a hidden danger was lurking. The winter had been unusually mild, causing a huge number of icebergs to break away from Greenland and drift south, directly into the shipping lanes. On the night of April 14th, the wireless room began receiving iceberg warnings from other ships in the area. The first few were passed to Captain Edward Smith. But as the day went on, more and more warnings came in. Crucially, not all of them reached the bridge. The wireless operators, employed by the Marconi Company, were overwhelmed with sending private messages for the wealthy first-class passengers. A key warning that evening from a nearby ship, the Californian, which had stopped for the night, because it was surrounded by ice, was famously dismissed by a tired Titanic operator who replied, "Shut up. I am busy." The night grew colder. The sea was unnervingly calm, like a sheet of black glass. This stillness was actually a bad sign. With no waves, it was much harder to spot an iceberg by seeing water breaking at its base. The lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, were high up in the crow's nest, peering into the darkness. They were missing a crucial piece of equipment: binoculars. The key to the locker where they were stored had been accidentally taken ashore by an officer who was transferred off the ship at the last minute. We'll never know for sure if binoculars would have made a difference, but it's one of the many what-ifs that haunt this story. At 11:40 p.m., Fleet saw it. A dark mass dead ahead. He rang the warning bell 3 times and telephoned the bridge, shouting the chilling words, "Iceberg, right ahead." First Officer William Murdoch, on duty on the bridge, immediately ordered the ship hard to starboard, a turn to the left, and for the engines to be put in full reverse. It was a textbook reaction, but it was too late. The massive ship was too big and moving too fast to turn in time. For 37 agonizing seconds, the crew on the bridge held their breath. The ship began to turn, and it seemed like they might just scrape by. But then came a horrifying grinding sound. The iceberg, a monstrous mass of ancient ice, tore along the starboard side of the hull, below the waterline. The impact wasn't a huge, dramatic crash like you see in the movies. For many passengers, it was just a slight shudder, a strange vibration. Some didn't even wake up. But below deck, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg had punched and buckled the steel plates, opening up 6 of the first 16 watertight compartments to the sea. The unsinkable ship was designed to survive 4 compartments flooding, not 6. The math was brutal and absolute. The Titanic was doomed. Thomas Andrews, the ship's builder, was on board for the maiden voyage. After a quick inspection of the damage, he delivered the grim verdict to Captain Smith. The ship had at most 2 hours to live. The unthinkable was happening. Panic began to set in, but it was a slow, creeping panic. The order was given to uncover the lifeboats and get passengers on deck. Here, another fatal flaw in the Titanic's design became apparent. The ship carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for just over 1,100 people. There were more than 2,200 souls on board. Even if every boat was filled to capacity, more than 1,000 people would be left behind. The regulations at the time were horribly outdated. They based lifeboat requirements on a ship's weight, not its passenger count. The evacuation was chaotic and disorganized. The crew hadn't had a proper lifeboat drill. In the confusion and the freezing cold, the women and children first protocol was interpreted differently on opposite sides of the ship. On the port side, an officer strictly allowed only women and children into the boats. On the starboard side, the officer allowed men in if there were empty seats. As a result, many of the first lifeboats were launched half-empty, a tragic waste of precious space. Distinctions of class became a matter of life and death. First-class passengers were on the upper decks, closer to the lifeboats. Third-class passengers were trapped below, navigating a confusing maze of corridors and locked gates, with many struggling to even reach the boat deck. As the ship's bow sank deeper, the stern rose high into the air. The scene on deck became one of desperate courage and heartbreaking goodbyes. The ship's band, led by Wallace Hartley, famously played on, providing a surreal and calming soundtrack to the unfolding horror. Men saw their wives and children into lifeboats, knowing they would never see them again. Benjamin Guggenheim and his valet changed back into their finest evening wear, stating, "We've dressed up in our best and are prepared to go down as gentlemen." At around 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the immense stress on the ship's structure became too much. With a sound like thunder, the Titanic broke in two between the third and fourth funnels. The stern section settled back into the water for a moment before rising vertically one last time, a final dark silhouette against the starry sky. Then, it slipped beneath the waves, taking with it over 1,500 people into the freezing 28-degree Fahrenheit water. The sounds that followed were described by survivors in the lifeboats as the most terrible they had ever heard. The cries of over 1,000 people freezing to death in the Atlantic. Only one lifeboat went back to try and rescue people from the water. They managed to pull just 6 survivors from the wreckage. Within minutes, the cries faded into an eerie silence. For nearly 2 hours, the survivors drifted in their lifeboats in the dark, until the lights of the rescue ship, the RMS Carpathia, appeared on the horizon. The Carpathia had raced through the same ice field at dangerous speeds after hearing the Titanic's distress calls. Over the next few hours, it picked up all 705 survivors from the lifeboats. The sinking of the Titanic sent shockwaves around the world. How could this happen? How could the pinnacle of modern technology be defeated so completely? Inquiries were held in both the United States and Britain. The aftermath led to sweeping changes in maritime safety. The International Ice Patrol was established to monitor icebergs in the North Atlantic. Ships were now required to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board, and lifeboat drills became mandatory. And the rules governing wireless communication were completely overhauled, requiring a 24-hour radio watch on all passenger ships. The story of the Titanic is more than just a shipwreck. It's a timeless human drama. It's a lesson in the dangers of overconfidence and a reminder that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, we are always at the mercy of the natural world. But it's also a story of incredible courage, sacrifice, and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of an unimaginable disaster. The ship may be gone, but its story, and the stories of the people who were on it, will echo through history forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what you find most compelling about the Titanic story. Until next time.